Hey folks, welcome back to the Model Shop. This is Ben. So today, what I'm going to cover in this video is we went ahead and added all the little details to the top of the deck that we could prior to putting the wood deck down. Obviously, certain parts are bigger than the holes provided in the deck, and so the deck wouldn't fit on top of that. So we went ahead and covered that. You'll get to see those. They're painted. I went ahead and installed the main level wooden deck. We covered that in detail. I was able to do a little bit of work on some of the, I guess we'll call it the first deck above the main deck, some of the detail that you had there to the superstructure. I managed to get the deck chain plate installed and painted up. And fits the way it should, so I covered that in pretty good detail. And I think that's about it. There's a lot of material here, so let's get to it so you can see what we got accomplished. Alright, so what I've done here is added all of the little fittings to the deck that can go on before the wooden deck is installed, meaning that the cutouts on the wooden deck, all of these little items poking up will fit, and most of them are just, for the mooring lines. It's pretty nice because they're individual pieces and they go in place. So what I need to do now is get them painted the gray to match the deck so that they're protected, and then the next thing I think I'm going to do here is start working on getting the deck installed, because really that's where I'm at on the progress. The only other choice would be to work more on the side of the hull, the gray area up on top, which has not been weathered yet, but really just in my mind, the way I've been working through this, it's time to just get the wood deck on, and then there's all sorts of things we can do from there. Alright, next section here, we went ahead and got all those little parts that we were talking about before painted gray so that they match the deck. And I also went ahead and shot this whole area white. There's going to be a wall that goes in front of it, and then there'll be the openings for the secondary guns. Most battleships are white on the walls on the inside. I know a lot of people have, there might be opinions, it could be a light gray, but the ones I've been on are white, and I did a little Google search and most of them came up white. So we're going with this because what little bit you'll be able to see through here when it's all together, I want it to be able to stick out. Okay, so here, moving on to the wooden deck. As you can see, it is cupped up a little bit. The reason for that is I sprayed the top of this with a clear matte, and I'm really glad I did because it's given it kind of a firmer finish. And this awesome deck planking is actually printed on there. This is an ink color, and then the laser cut everything out. So I did want to seal all of this in. And as I mentioned before, the back is covered in a very thin felt. And so what I've done is a bunch of dry fitting of this where I worked out making everything fit. So like right here required a little bit of sanding. Right there you can see it raised a little bit on me. That spot needed a little bit of work. Right here wanted that circle to end up as centered as possible. And all I did, it was I have a couple of really cheap jeweler's files. This one's round, this one's a little triangle. Those you get, in a kit for like $2 at the store. Let's see, the hardware store, usually in their junk bins, or you can grab them at Harbor Freight. Anyway, they work just fine. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is put a thin layer of wood glue down, the Gorilla wood glue, on the back of this entire thing. And I'll probably just smudge it on with my fingers, get it nice and even. And I'm going to put a thin layer on this as well, mostly focusing on the edges where things are kind of lifting up on this. And then I'll probably weight it down with anything that I can, mostly paint, I'm thinking at this point. So, yeah, let's kind of get set up and try and do that. Let's see how this works. Alright, so what I've started to do here is just get the glue on, generally speaking. The middle is pretty good about staying down. Then I've got my glove on, and I'm going to smudge it around, really place an emphasis on getting a nice even coat along the edges. And this technique, I've never done this before with plastic. This technique is what I would do if I was laminating this, if this was a piece of wood and this was an actual piece of wood. You know, get the glue on both parts first in a thin layer like this, and that provides a nice tacky surface for the two to stick together on. So we're going to try that out on here. Alright, did get a little bit on the top. You know, be careful you don't want to do that. But that's another reason why I sprayed this ahead of time, to get a clear coat on it. Halfway protect it, because I can wipe that off a little bit. So let's set this out of the side. Let's start getting glue on our ship. And here the emphasis is really going to be the edges. It should hold well because it's grooved. Okay. Hopefully I didn't get in too much extra on the parts that stick up. If we do, we'll touch them up with a brush. I'm going to take my glove off because there's glue on my glove. And see if we could stick this down without making too much of a mess. I do have this popsicle stick to help push edges down. We're just going to try this and see. I've never done this before. Starting with the circles, or the mounts, the main guns. And since this is curved up, I'm kind of going to apply my old... I used to work at a upholstery shop for working on custom cars when I was a teenager, and whenever you did something like this, you always started in the middle and worked your way out. And everywhere that you have something sticking up, it looks like here, if you can get it to go down around it, it helps kind of suck it down and hold it down the rest of the way. This is working so far, knock on wood, it's working really well. Not too worried about this back edge, that slot right here and here, hopefully you can see that. There's a big piece of plastic, a piece that wraps around this whole thing that goes there. You know, I'm working kind of quickly, but really I've got a lot of time here. It's just sticking down real nicely. It's kind of going down and just staying. So some of this along the edge is still raised a little bit. I'm going to probably start stacking a bunch of paint bottles and stuff on this. And if it lifts up a little bit, I wouldn't hesitate to put a little bit of liquid cement in here, you know, like a super glue or something, real thin. Let it run in there. Capillary action will hold down. But I also want to get, if we just get it weighted down, everything laying flat, it may just go ahead and stay down the way I want it to anyway. Just floating a little bit right in here. I think you can see that. There we go. Push this down. That'll help hold it. Also, I think in the instructions there's like a big box or something that goes right on top here, and that'll help lock it down too. That's the other thing I'm trying to keep in mind is I looked at the instructions ahead of time, and a lot of this, like all of these holes right here, you know, there's items that go on top of that. So really the trick is going to be, can I keep it down in all the flat areas and have it stay that way? I don't want, you know, I don't want in a month or a week to have the thing going all wavy on me. Alright. Whoop, a little scratch in there when I did that. Gonna be hard to see. Okay. Wow, alright. Let's take a look at this. Alright, here's the back deck on. We're getting close. You can see I got little bits of glue that I got to clean up. But generally speaking here, it's down. So the next thing to do is going to be, we're going to get probably a bunch of paint on here and weigh it down. The wood glue gets tacky and kind of sets up quick in about 20 minutes, but doesn't really cure for a couple hours. And that's what's great, because if I screwed this up, I could get a knife or something underneath here and lift the whole thing off. So, alright. That's good enough for now. Let's get the weight on it and we'll get to the next section. Alright, next section here. So, the deck in the back went down just great, and it's time to move on to the bow. There's a little piece that goes in the middle here. There it is. It's not glued on, I just laid it in there. It fits extremely well. I mean, even that splinter, like, look at that. That's perfect. I don't even need to do anything. What I think I'm going to do differently on the bow this time, though, is lay the glue down out of the bottle and then use a brush to get it down and really focus on getting it applied well to the edge. And same thing, all the edges here. The only fit issue, and I don't know exactly why he did this, but I'm sure there's a couple of reasons. If you look at this shape, and look at that shape, like, you can see they don't match up. And I think there's a couple of reasons for this. I'll just set it up here. One, you know, do you want the wood to go all the way back and follow this edge, or not? Do you want just to follow the outside edge? So we have to make this work. And what I'm going to do is take a piece of paper, and I'm going to go ahead and lay it on top of my wood deck here, and get this circle on it cut out, and get these edges cut out so that I can lay it back up on here, kind of score this edge on the paper, put it back down after it's cut out, and translate that onto here and cut it out so that this fits. I don't have a problem with the whole, you know, all of this being the wood deck going down on here, except for right here, this piece. There's a extra piece that sits down there. I need to make sure that it sits down flush all the way so that it's flush with this molded piece, so that the upper deck, here we go, sorry, so that the upper deck will still sit down flush with where it needs to go. So anyway, that real quickly is going to be the plan of attack here to get this cut out so it fits. I'll get back to you after I've got my pieces set up. Alright, so this is the pattern that I made up real quick, and it sort of worked. As you can see, there are gaps, but that's okay. Most of that's going to be hidden. No one's really going to see it anyway. So it's laid down alright. The only thing left to do now is go ahead and apply the glue. So we're going to go ahead and glue this up, and it'll end up looking basically like that. Alright, onward and upward. Alright, next thing, we got the deck down. Back to the problem we're having here with the chain plate, deck chain plate. I just annealed it, that's why it looks funny. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mark a line along here and cut it. I'll probably scribe it with a sharpened blade and break it off so that I have two halves that I'm working with, and see if we can't get it to fit the rest of the way like we want. Alright, we got this section cut, and our first problem area that we have to deal with is right under this triangle. There's this little nub. It sticks up right here. There's a matching one over there. You can see there's a little triangle space that should match with the triangle cut out in the deck plate. And if I place it like so, it perfectly lines up with this hole. But then if you look over here, you can see we have this huge, massive gap. And then things don't line up at all over here. So if we'll just position it correctly. We're very close to it, where it needs to go. Like this. Take our pencil, mark out here, here, and here. We'll get cutters and remove this. And then up over here, I'll probably sand a little bit of this away. It's all been annealed, and then it should drop down the place correctly. Okay, so we went ahead and cut away this area, cut our little hole here, and I had to go ahead and file and cut away a little bit more right there. So kind of lock it down and push everything in place. Hopefully you guys can see it's a little bendy because I annealed it. Basically everything lines up as well as it possibly can. So the next step is going to be, I'm just going to sand the back surface of this, flatten it out a little bit, get some super glue down, and get this thing in place. I'd like to airbrush it, but I'm going to have to mask everything off very, very carefully and put it down first. So what I'm going to do now, like I said, I'll get this in place. Then we have this entire section is going to go down, and I'll be able to work on how it sits and fits, and we'll butt it up to this joint and get everything to line up the way we want. So I'll check back in with you. That's the plan, and show it to you when it's all said and done. Alright, onward and upward. And shazam, there it is. Masked, painted. There's a couple of little imperfection marks in it, but there's going to be a anchor chain laying over the top of it, so I'm not really worried. Like that spot in particular kind of turned out crummy. I had a little bit of an issue right there, but I might sand that up later. Anyway, it looks nice, you know, cleaned up, and most people are going to see it from here, so looks good. You zoom in a little bit, you get a little bit of that texture. I think it was worth the hassle. So, alright guys, I feel like there's plenty of material here for a video. We're going to call it quits for now. In the next video, like I said, back here, we're going to start working on some of these major structural components, and because the deck is in place, we'll start putting in all the little doodads that occupy all these spots along here, the bow and the stern, that need to get put in place. So, alright, that's it. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.